a blockade that shook an empire, a parade that might never happen, and a parliamentary session scheduled to humiliate the Kremlin on the most sacred day in the Russian calendar. This is the world as it stands this morning. Let's take a look at it together. The Strait of Hormuz has been called the world's most important choke point for decades. 20% of the world's oil supply passes through the narrow corridor between Iran and Oman. Control of the strait gives the holder leverage over the entire global economy. This week, however, Iran blinked. Tehran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, announced that the Strait of Hormuz was now fully open to commercial vessels, citing the ceasefire in Lebanon as the official reason. However, the timing suggests otherwise. Just days earlier, the U.S. Navy had begun a strategic blockade. All Iranian ports were effectively isolated. 90% of Iran's exports and imports flow through these ports. Within days, the announcement came. Call it diplomacy. Call it pressure. Either way, the result was the same. Iran's most powerful geographic asset was played and lost. Oil markets reacted immediately, with prices falling on the news. But don't be fooled into thinking that means cheaper fuel. The damage to global trade routes has already been done. Tanker insurance costs have soared. Routes have grown longer. Every extra mile incurs a cost, and these costs are passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices for goods and services. Medicines, plastics, bread, housing. The whole world is paying for this war, including those parts not directly involved in the fighting. Here's a detail that would have seemed unthinkable 3 years ago. Leningrad Oblast, the birthplace of Vladimir Putin, has just launched a partial military mobilization, not to send soldiers to Ukraine, but to defend itself from Ukrainian drones. The region's governor, Alexander Drozdenko, made the announcement himself, calling on veterans of the Special Military Operation, retirees from the Soviet and Russian armed forces, and anyone with combat experience to sign up for mobile fire team crews. Contracts are for 3 years. 3 years. Since the beginning of this year alone, 243 drones have been shot down over Leningrad Oblast. Since late March, Ukraine has systematically struck Russia's largest oil export terminals on the Baltic Sea, the ports of Primorsk and Ust-Luga. Drozdenko recently told residents that they were living in hothouse conditions, reassuring them that food ration coupons had not yet been issued. This is the level of reassurance that people can expect in Putin's Russia right now. Meanwhile, there are whispered debates inside the Kremlin in Moscow about whether to hold the Victory Day parade on Red Square on May 9th. The fear that Ukrainian drones could reach the heart of the capital has become very real and deeply embarrassing. May 9th is the most significant date on Russia's political calendar. It is Victory Day, the parade, the pageantry of empire. But this year, it may belong to someone else entirely. In Hungary, the newly elected parliament has scheduled its first session for May 9th. On that day, Péter Magyar will be sworn in as prime minister, officially ending Viktor Orbán's 15-year grip on power. Orbán, once Putin's closest ally in Europe, the man who vetoed EU aid packages and blocked sanctions, the man who flew to Moscow for photo opportunities while other leaders refused, recently gave an interview that felt more like a eulogy than a political statement. I don't know if I can find happiness in life, aside from my family, or motivation, ambition, or inspiration. I don't know yet because right now I'm struggling with fatigue and emptiness. He spoke about football, about being benched, about resignation. His longtime foreign minister, Péter Szijjártó, famous for his warm relationship with Sergei Lavrov, was recently spotted by journalists, not in Moscow, nor in Brussels. He was running through a park, apparently trying to stay fit. What future for him? Nobody knows yet. But the symbolism of May 9th now cuts both ways. In Moscow, it's a day of fear and uncertainty. In Budapest, however, it's a day of democratic reckoning. While Iran was dealing with its blockade crisis, another story was quietly unfolding. One with far greater long-term implications. According to CBS News, China had been planning to transfer advanced X-band radar systems to Iran. These are not ordinary radars. X-band technology can detect low-flying drones and missiles, precisely the kind of assets that Israel and the United States depend on for strike operations in the region. With such a system, Iran's air defenses would be much harder to penetrate. Attacking Iranian nuclear or military infrastructure would be more costly, dangerous, and unpredictable. Donald Trump personally called Xi Jinping to ask him not to proceed. Beijing publicly denied any plans to transfer weapons. Meanwhile, Republican lawmakers in Washington introduced new legislation targeting China's use of AI distillation, a process whereby Chinese entities take advanced American AI models and reverse engineer cheaper copies. The bill would impose sanctions and blacklisting on violators. Washington's message is consistent. Whether it's radars for Iran, satellites, or artificial intelligence, the line is being drawn. American technological dominance is now being treated as a national security issue, not just an economic one. Notably, Russia could also fall under the scope of this legislation. Back on the front lines of the air war, Ukraine is developing something new and urgent. This week, Defense Minister Mikhailo Fedorov announced that private air defense groups operating at enterprise level and integrated directly into the Ukrainian Air Force system have already recorded their first confirmed shoot-downs. Most significantly, they have downed a jet-powered drone for the first time. These aren't rogue units. They are structured and coordinated, and are already active at 19 companies across Ukraine. In Kharkiv alone, one such group has been intercepting Shahed drones. Why does this matter? Because Russia is scaling up. Speaking at the Antalya Diplomatic Forum in Turkey, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha delivered a stark intelligence assessment. Moscow is preparing for massive, coordinated attacks in the near future. In this war, the definition of massive has evolved to mean at least 400 drones combined with at least 20 missiles. Russian planners are reportedly preparing up to 7 such attacks per month. President Zelensky outlined Ukraine's strategic response. The country is pursuing anti-ballistic systems and working towards a future in which air defense systems, missiles, launchers, and everything else required can be manufactured domestically in Ukraine with the help of partners. This is a strategic goal, said Zelensky, that will guarantee protection for decades. To conclude, here's a glimpse of Russia as it's not shown on state television. In the State Duma, Nina Ostanina, a lawmaker, has proposed banning IVF treatment for single women. She believes that solo motherhood produces effeminate men without willpower. Her solution? Russian women should pay more attention to military veterans, whom she describes as real men. Interestingly, Ostanina's own son was sentenced to 12.5 years in a maximum security penal colony in 2010 for murdering a business partner. The victim was stabbed 42 times. Ostanina was married at the time. Meanwhile, in occupied Sevastopol, the authorities have introduced new regulations for state-funded burials. Wooden coffins are no longer required. Sawdust composite boards are now acceptable. Cardboard is now also acceptable. The price cap has been set at 3,500 rubles. No further commentary is needed. A sea route has been forced open by naval pressure. A governor in Putin's home region is mobilizing reservists to fend off drones. A Moscow parade that may be held in fear, and a parliamentary session in Budapest timed to coincide with Russia's most sacred date. The war in Ukraine is now 3 years old, but its consequences, economic, political, and symbolic, are reshaping everything from the Strait of Hormuz to the streets of Budapest. The world is no longer watching from a safe distance. Stay informed. We'll be back tonight.